So here I'm trying to recreate the archive with all the racks and the films out, or mostly out. This is a spray painting of Jimi Hendrix by a former occupant of this room. And she also did the Much Love. This was the small plus room. And you can tell we've already started tearing out the wall here. I think I'm already varying the path a little bit. So this is destined to be torn out, drywall. And then this was the medium room, which is now empty. Okay, yeah. This was a very, very, very busy weekend. So we had been taking films out of the back of the archive, and there's no films in the back, there's no films in the basement. They're all off-site and at 7 storage units. And so a good friend of mine, Tim League, said, hey, I can help you do demo work. And I was like, okay. So we got a dumpster, and I took my trusty Hello Kitty sledgehammer, and we took down all the drywall. And I will show you what that looks like at the end of the show. I am very sore. And we filled up a dumpster. We filled up a whole dumpster with old 1970s, late 70s stuff. And Kevin, yes, Tim League, who's the founder of the Alamo Draft House, loves doing hard hat work. He loves doing it. And I wouldn't have done it. I was like, I had it budgeted. I would pay somebody to do it, but yeah. He was like, let's do it. And I was like, okay. And so there you go. I have lots of stuff to show you. But let's start off. So last week we showed the well-fed cell. And what was it? What was the actual title of it? Let me see. Yeah, Food Chooser's Guide to the Well-Fed Cell, which was animated and was the 3rd edition of Food That Builds Good Health. Well, here's food. Boy, I might have to have some more coffee. Food That Builds Good Health. By the way, I'm Skip Elsummer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where we actually watch 16mm films, and all of that stuff I showed is in service for better housing for the 16mm films we have in our collection. Enjoy.
Bacon and eggs and buttered toast. Won't you have some? How about some jelly, too? And prunes, they're delicious. We have milk and a big glass of orange juice. There's nothing like a good, healthy breakfast to start the day off right. And a meal like this should satisfy anyone. Well, almost anyone except Art Baker. Art just doesn't eat the food he should. He only takes what he likes. No wonder Mother is worried. She knows that eating the right foods regularly is to good health. Art is pale and underweight, and he doesn't have very much energy. And Art's disposition, well, when Mother asks him to help her with the marketing after school, see how cross he gets? he'll have to learn that food has a lot to do with the way you look and the way you feel. Did you ever notice that some boys and girls seem to look and feel better than others? They always seem to be and full of vigor and vitality, cheerful smiles, bright eyes, and strong and husky bodies. It certainly is wonderful to be like that, isn't it? Art would like to have as much fun as anyone else, but he just can't keep up. Do you think that Art could ever look and feel healthy like the other boys and girls? Well, what's this? Guinea pigs. Art's class has been raising these guinea pigs for some time now. This is Pat. He's strong and healthy and full of pep and energy, isn't he? Don't you think watching Pat is lots of fun? This is Mike. Say, he doesn't look like Pat, does he? See how unhealthy he seems to be? Not very much pep and energy. No, it isn't much fun watching these days. Why isn't Mike as healthy as Pat? Art can remember just a few months ago when the class first got Pat and Mike. They had the same start. They were both the same size and age, and both were strong and healthy. In the classroom, they both received the same treatment. Only one thing was different: the food. Pat different from Mike's. On a chart, Art's class kept a careful record with check marks to show when Pat and Mike were fed. Today, the chart looks like this. And today it's Art's turn to feed the guinea pigs. One kind of food for Pat and another kind for Mike. What do you think? Do you think this difference in the kind of food they eat has made the difference between healthy Pat and unhealthy Mike? Yes, that must be the right answer. You see, Pat gets a balanced diet containing all the different kinds of food a guinea pig needs to be healthy. But Mike's diet is unbalanced. He gets plenty to eat out of all the kinds of food he needs. So Pat is strong and healthy, but Mike is not. The kinds of food you eat make quite a difference. Apply to people. Our bodies need the balance of the various kinds of food to make us strong and healthy too. We need foods rich in proteins, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, minerals, and water. Proteins help us with growth. Fats and carbohydrates are important suppliers of energy. Vitamins and minerals are good for body regulation. And water serves to transport all these materials throughout our bodies. Can you guess where these materials we need come from? Why, from the foods we eat, of course. Those foods fall into basic food groups: milk, vegetables, fruits, eggs, meat, cheese, or fish, cereal or bread, and butter or enriched margarine. Every day you should eat some of the foods in each of these groups. It's up to you. If you don't eat the right foods regularly, you may not be strong and healthy. If you do eat the right foods regularly, your body will get all the material it needs for good health. Well, after school, Art tried helping Mother with the shopping. And he found it was fun to try to help pick out the foods that will make good, healthy meals. Take milk, for example. That's an important food group. When we're growing up, we should have about 4 glasses of milk every day to help build strong bones and teeth. And now, let's go on to another important food group: Vegetables. There certainly is quite a variety to choose from. Lettuce, spinach, cabbage, carrots, celery, squash, and a lot more. Besides potatoes, we should have 2 or more servings of vegetables daily. Next, something from the fruit group. Look at all the different kinds. Cherries, pears, apples, pineapples, watermelon, oranges. We'll take some oranges. Fruits are especially good for body regulation. We should have 2 or more servings every day. And let's take some tomatoes. Art is not so fond of tomatoes, but if they help make us healthy, he's willing to eat them. And who knows, he'll probably grow to like them. Eggs are another important food that help make us healthy. There are all sorts of ways to prepare eggs. We should really have an egg every day. Now let's see. Meat. What kind will we have for dinner? Meats of all kinds, or fish, or poultry, or cheese. Any of these would fill our daily requirement of this group of foods. And there's certainly a variety to set a tempting table. There. Now, is there anything else? Oh, yes, another important food, bread. And Mother always makes sure it's whole grain or enriched. And to go with the bread, butter or enriched margarine. They contain fats that help provide us with the materials we need for energy. Now we have foods from all the groups necessary to make healthy, well-balanced meals. Can you remember what they are? Milk, vegetables, fruits, eggs, meat, bread, and butter. These foods supply what our bodies need for good health. And here's what a healthy dinner looks like ready to eat. Just look at that roast. And potatoes, carrots, bread and butter, lettuce and tomato salad, and milk. A well-balanced meal with something from each of the food groups. And look at Art. He's eating a good helping of all the things on the table, whether they're his favorites or not. He's going to become just as strong and healthy as anybody else. And during the weeks that followed, every time Art sat down to a meal, he remembered the things he had learned about foods and health. About how Pat and Mike showed that eating the right foods regularly can make you look and feel healthy. And how our bodies need different kinds of materials from the right foods. And what these food groups are, and how we must have the right amounts of each to have a balanced diet. Yes, Art has learned that the food we eat has a lot to do with good health. The right foods will help us to look healthy, to feel healthy, and most of all, to be happy.
Ooh, what happened? Rodents don't do very well in films on nutrition. There's a lot of starving going on. Let's see. So behind me I have a film scanner, and we have 4 films. This is exciting. I had so much fun showing you stuff. This is new stuff that we got. Also, did I say that on Saturday I got 200 more films? So there's more films, but I took them off site. Anyways, here's a scanner. And what are we going to see first? I'm not sure. Let me find out. Anyways, enjoy. It's not Jasper's Hospital Experience. It is something else, which I can't remember. So I'll change the title as soon as we see it. Enjoy.
Good morning, Mr. Bus. How are you today?
Just fine, Webster. And you?
Well, I'm okay, thank you. Wahoo! Out of the way, me first. Come on, Slowpoke.
Orson, I'm surprised at you. You come down here right this minute.
But, Webster, what did I do? I was just having fun.
Fun? Orson, sometimes. Now, Webster, be patient.
Who was that?
It is I, your school bus. Now, Webster, be patient with Orson. Maybe he doesn't know about the safety rules for riding on a school bus.
Rules? What rules?
Honestly, Orson, don't you know anything about riding the bus safely?
Well, I've only been riding for a short while, and
Orson, there are no excuses when your life and the lives of others are involved. Mr. Bus, it looks like we're going to have to help Orson learn the rules. You're right, Webster. Why don't you look into my right headlight, and I'll try to shine some light on the subject.
Hey, a movie!
Pay attention, Orson. When you're waiting for the bus to arrive, Orson, you should make sure that you're at a safe distance from the curb. And don't rush up to the bus when it arrives. That's right. Everyone should line up in a single file and wait until the bus door is opened and the driver says that it is all right to get on board. Then you should file onto the bus in an orderly manner.
Does that mean no pushing?
Or shouting. Once on the bus, take your seat and stay seated until the bus driver opens the door at your stop.
Gee, I'm sorry I didn't know those things, Webster. I didn't mean to do anything wrong.
That's okay, Orson. We all have to learn sometime. But that's not all. There's lots more. That's right, Webster. Let's show Orson how to ride on the bus safely. Okay? Always remain seated while the bus is moving. It is very important to keep your hands, arms, and head inside. And be sure to keep the aisle clear of anything you're carrying with you.
Like my baseball bat and glove?
Yes.
And my books and lunch?
Yes. And my Orson? Really now?
I'm sorry. I just wanted to be sure.
You're right, Orson. I apologize for losing my patience, but we have so much to cover, Oh, never mind. Now just pay attention. What's next, Mr. Bus? Webster, I don't believe we've said anything about one of the most important things on a school bus.
The wheels?
What's that, Mr. Bus?
The windshield wipers.
The bus driver.
Oh.
Oh. The driver is very important to the safety of everyone on board. He's sort of like the captain of a ship and should be obeyed just like one.
Is driving a bus full of children hard work?
It can be, Orson, if everyone doesn't cooperate with the driver.
What should they do?
Well, keeping the noise down and behaving would help the driver concentrate on driving. Being quiet also helps the driver hear signals, such as at railroad crossings or when an emergency signal is heard.
Emergency? What emergency? I never knew there could be one of those.
An emergency can be anything, Orson. It can be a flat tire, a breakdown in the motor.
An accident?
Yes, Orson, even an accident. But the important thing is to always remain calm and listen to the driver, or a student aide if one has been appointed by the driver. The driver will always give instructions on whether to get off the bus or not. If he says to get off, go to the emergency exit assigned to you, leaving anything you're carrying with you on your seat.
You mean like my baseball bat and glove?
That's right.
And my books and lunch?
Yes.
And my... Sorry. Webster?
Yes.
When you leave the bus, do you line up single file like when you get on?
That's a very good question, Orson. The answer is no. The passengers in the right front seat leave first, followed by the left front seat, and so on until the bus is empty.
That sounds like fun.
Riding on the bus can be fun if you follow all the rules, Orson. That's right. Now let's go over them once more to be sure we covered everything.
Don't rush to get onto the bus.
Very good, Orson. And then we board in single file, quietly and courteously.
Take your seat and remain there until you reach your destination and the bus has stopped moving.
Don't forget to keep the aisle clear and keep your hands, arms, and heads inside.
Obey the bus driver at all times.
Exit the bus from assigned doors on command from the driver.
Leave quietly and orderly from right to left, starting with the front row.
Orson, I'm really proud of you. You learned so much today. There's only one thing left which we haven't covered.
What's that, Webster?
When you get off the bus, be sure to walk directly away from the bus before stopping. And be sure that the driver can see you, so he'll know it's safe to go.
Webster, I think it's time for us to go, too.
You're right, Orson. Goodbye, Mr. Bus. Goodbye, Orson and Webster. Goodbye.
Yeah, that does have a real Barney Miller theme feel to it. Plus, that has a real Jimmy Stewart feel to it. A lot of stuff in a kid's bus safety film. Let's see, this next one is Slavonic dance. Oistrackh plays Slavonic dance. Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. Let me switch over and we'll see what this is all about. That was nice. Yeah, someone in the comments was like, it's hard to riff on when something's done a nice piece of classical music. Yeah, sometimes we need a break. Need a break. What's the next film I got set up here? It says lemon sequence. I don't know what this is.
The audiovisual medium can motivate. What do we mean, motivate? We mean move. Audiovisuals can move a person almost in spite of himself. Now you may be saying, no one can darn well move me if I don't want to be moved. Perhaps. But let's experiment with the power of the medium right now. This is a lemon, slightly green, fresh plucked from that lovely California grove. The juice is a little tart, and as the knife slices into the fruit, it squirts a bit and skitters down the blade. This is a juicy lemon, and the very smell of it tempts the taste. If you are like most people, this lemon makes your mouth water. Almost in spite of yourself, a response is stirred inside you. You have been moved, motivated. So strong is the suggestion of this amazing medium. We have no lemon here. You see? Just a projector and a piece of film through which light is poured and sound is evoked.
Wow, I was so blown away by the fact that Mason Adams did the voiceover, and somebody actually thought the first puppet sounded like Mason Adams. I didn't even get a chance to change. It was just called Lemon Sequence. All right, this one I think is in. This is part 2 of intermediate shooting technique. Just in time for the Olympics. Enjoy.
Anyone who wants to become a top-notch archer probably already knows that the first job is learning the basic steps of a good shooting sequence. Next comes the process of refining and adapting those basic skills to suit an individual's own physical characteristics or personal preferences. But most important of all is developing a positive mental approach to shooting. Good attitude is as important as good equipment and good form. So only when you've developed a positive mental approach will you be able to refine the basics into the shooting sequence that's best for you. A shooting sequence you'll be able to repeat consistently each and every time you step up to the line. The first half of that sequence includes taking the proper stance, knocking the arrow, positioning the fingers on the bowstring, raising the bow to pre-draw position, the draw, and positioning the elbow. The second half of the sequence begins with the draw, includes holding the anchor, aiming and concentrating on the center of the target, releasing the arrow, and following through. So let's take a good look at the second half of that sequence and examine the aspects of it that must be perfected. Nearly every archer has learned that the draw should be accomplished by pulling the string back with the muscles of the back and shoulder. But not everyone knows that the easiest way to achieve that goal is simply by bringing the elbow back in a straight line. So instead of worrying about the muscles in your back, concentrate on bringing the elbow back in as straight a line as possible. As the draw ends, the point of the elbow is in correct position slightly above the arrow. And during the draw, it's also important to relax the string fingers by keeping the back of the drawing hand relaxed from the third knuckle back through the wrist and forearm. As the hand comes back to anchor, the third knuckle, back of the hand, and wrist all should be in line. Even during the anchor, you must maintain the tension between the back and shoulder muscles. The anchor itself varies from one archer to the next. Some target shooters anchor under the chin, others to the side of the face and mouth. Whichever of the two you prefer, you'll achieve a good, solid anchor by holding the forefinger tightly against the jawbone. Not only does this bone-to-bone anchor keep your head, eyes, shoulders, and bow arm in proper alignment, but it maintains the pulling forces of the back and shoulders while you aim. Either anchor helps a shooter align the string accurately because the string itself is visible in the aiming eye. A good anchor also helps shooters bring the string back to the same point every time and keep their heads in good position. The under-the-chin anchor may be difficult for some people to master because of certain physical characteristics, such as a short neck. And both under-the-chin and side anchor are usually used by sight shooters. On the other hand, instinctive shooting requires the use of the hunting anchor, in which the hand fits along the cheek with the thumb underneath the jaw. This is a solid anchor that's easy to duplicate rapidly. With any anchor, it's important that all archers avoid some common faults that destroy the accuracy of their shots. Opening and closing the mouth throws the anchor off and causes high or low strike patterns. Locking the string hand on the face relaxes the muscles in the back and causes a dead release in low arrows. Goosenecking, bending the neck toward the bow, results in a shorter draw and low arrows. And if there's a lack of solid reference points between the hand and face, the anchor floats from shot to shot. Other common faults include changing the angle of the head from shot to shot, overdrawing, and not using the string alignment properly. Finally, if you fail to relax the muscles of the neck and face during the anchor, you'll become fatigued far too quickly. But if you can avoid all these faults, you'll develop a solid anchor that gives you a good platform from which to aim. The first important point to remember about aiming is this: your aim is only as good as the form directing the arrow. If the arrow is to hit in the target center, you must give it a positive direction. The target, the sight, and the bowstring must be aligned. And the sight picture should look like this, with the target in focus and the sight and string out of focus. There's bound to be some slight movement of the sight on the target that's virtually impossible to eliminate. Don't worry about it, and don't strain your muscles trying to correct it. Instead, stay relaxed and let the sight float on the center of the target. Throughout the aiming process, keep your concentration on the target and your eyes focused on it. Adjusting the focus between the sight and the target not only breaks the concentration, but causes rapid eye fatigue. Only when you feel everything about the shot, the alignment of the bowstring, center of the sight, and the target is right, is it time to release. And every good archer maintains his concentration after the arrow is released, keeping the center of the target in focus throughout the follow-through. When shooting without a sight, the aiming process is instinctive, and becoming a good instinctive shooter takes a great deal of time, practice, and experimentation. And to become a good instinctive shooter, you must follow 3 vital rules. First, the anchor must be constant. Next, your concentration must be directed on the spot you intend to hit. And third, you must shoot soon after raising the bow into position. There must be no adjustment of the bow arm whatsoever. Naturally, only through practice and experimentation will you learn how to use the instinctive aiming method successfully. Of course, all emphasis on preparing the shot will be wasted unless you have good form at the release. Now let's look at what should happen. Remember that the word release actually is an inaccurate way to describe how the arrow should leave the hand. In truth, the muscles of the back of the hand relax until the shot explodes out of the shooter's fingers. And the key point is to time that relaxation of the hand so the release or the explosion occurs when everything else is right, when the string, sight, and target are in line, and when you're mentally ready. So a good release must be preceded by several other checkpoints: a relaxed bow hand, firm hold on the string, wrist of the string hand relaxed, bow arm elbow rigid, string and sight aligned with the center of the target, and shoulder and back muscles feeling the pull of the bow's weight. Then as the pull tension increases, when you get the feeling that everything about the shot is right, the back of the hand relaxes, and the arrow explodes from your grasp. Your fingers should feel as if they're pulling through the string, not letting go of it. To improve the consistency of their release, many shooters use a small device called a clicker. At full draw, the clicker rests on the last eighth of an inch of the arrow's point. After aiming, and when ready to shoot, the archer applies pressure on the drawing elbow until he hears the sound of the click, and then releases instantly. The follow-through begins immediately as a simple and natural pull of the fingers without unnecessary or exaggerated movement. The tension in the back and shoulder muscles pulls the fingers back and into contact with the jawbone and along the neck. The bow hand moves forward slightly to the left as a result of the explosion of the shot. Even as you hear the arrow hit the target, you should still be holding this follow-through position and mentally reviewing the entire shot sequence. This is the time to make a mental note about anything you'll want to correct in the next shot. Only then do you relax and prepare for the next shot sequence. All the time you should keep thinking, concentrating on exactly what you're doing, trying to understand any shooting problems you may have. Obviously, you can't let your mind wander or let yourself be distracted. As a result of your concentration and mental discipline, you'll develop a personal shooting form best for you. The shooting form that again and again will put your arrows right in the center of the target.
Wow, that was pretty great. I'm not a athletics fan, but I do get sucked into some Olympics competitions, especially weird ones that don't seem like they're traditional or I don't know anything about. So last Olympics it was volleyball, women's volleyball. This year it's women's skateboarding, and it was just fascinating, and especially all the terminology of all the tricks. It's pretty funny, and whether they did it straight or whether they did it goofy style, all that stuff, really awesome. So, this next film is not mine. It's part of the Prelinger collection, but it's something that I supposedly was going to get in a collection of films, but never showed up. This is an interesting film. It's made by the person who made Nanook of the North, Robert Flaherty, and it is made for the government, and it's about what's happening with sugar and why rationing was still going on after World War II ceased. And there's a little interesting side story related to that, but here's what's happened to sugar. Enjoy.
On August 14, 1945, our president gave out the news we had been waiting for. Now it was official for all the world to hear. Unconditional surrender. Victory over our last enemy, Japan. From coast to coast, the nation hailed the coming of peace and the return of happier days. One by one, the curbs of wartime were removed. But not on sugar. Why? For the answer, we must go back several years to the days before the war. Pre-war sugar production for the whole world was some 30 million tons a year. The world's sugar came from lands far apart. Cane sugar from Java and the Philippines. Beet sugar from nearly every country in Europe. Cane sugar from Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. And from our own mainland, Louisiana and Florida. Beet sugar from almost a score of states, reaching from our Great Lakes to the Pacific coast. Our pre-war mainland production of beet and cane sugars represented more than 1/4 of the nation's supply. The rest we brought in from the cane fields of tropical islands. Almost 1 million tons a year from the Philippines. About the same from Hawaii. Nearly 1 million tons from Puerto Rico. And from our largest source, Cuba, over 2 million tons. Our domestic beet sugar production has normally averaged more than 1.5 million tons a year. The sugar beet needs the cool climate of temperate zones for proper growth. The sugar stored in its long white root is identical in all respects with the cane sugar of tropical and semi-tropical climates. We had plenty of sugar until December 7th, 1941, when Japanese treachery plunged us into worldwide war. When the Japs seized the Philippines, they destroyed cane fields and mills, and the United States lost a yearly sugar supply of close to 1 million tons. When Java fell, the world lost another 1.5 million tons a year. Across the world, with most of Europe, including Russia's rich Ukraine, under the Nazi heel, wartime shortages of manpower, machinery, fuel, and fertilizer all but halted production of the sugar beet. The global war cut off nearly half of the world's sugar. We were not fighting the war alone. Our allies had to share with us the world's remaining sugar. Of this available supply, the United States was receiving the lion's share. Here is sugar from Cuba, raw sugar ready for refining. It looks like a lot, yet, although Cuba doubled her contribution to our supply during the war, it's less than we hoped it would be. For drought in Cuba and Puerto Rico in the last year of war cut deeply into the harvest. From a smaller total supply, our sugar industry has had to meet demands greater than ever before. For in wartime, this worldwide commodity became a worldwide problem. Wartime demands brought a challenge to the scientist. He proved that sugar could be used in the manufacture of synthetic tires and other parts of this bomber. Its wing coating, radar equipment, and the plastics on the instrument panel. Sugar entered into the composition of this turret. And sugar's most important byproduct, molasses, went into the production of the industrial alcohol used in the manufacture of these bombs. Enormous amounts of sugar were consumed daily by our armed forces, for Army dietitians knew that sugar meant renewed energy. To these GIs, sugar was far more than a mere sweetening substance that went into the rations they ate, into the cigarettes they smoked, and into their candy bars. To these men, sugar wasn't just something to put into a cup of coffee. To them, products derived from sugar often meant the difference between life and death. The citric acid used in blood plasma to prevent coagulation is made from beet sugar molasses. Sugar is used, too, in making anesthetics, antiseptics, and the surgical dressings with which wounds are bound. From the war's earliest days, every available ship carried supplies for the fighting fronts. The Nazi U-boats, with the sinking of untold tonnage in our merchant marine, almost cut our lifeline to war-ravaged Europe. We licked the Nazi at sea, and we beat him on his home ground. But victory in Europe did not solve our sugar shortage, for VE Day marked only half the job. And liberation of Europe's hungry peoples actually increased the demand on world short supplies. The nation now faced west. The railroads carried the greatest load in their history. Never were our Pacific Coast ports so busy. In peacetime, this shipping would be available to bring the products of other countries to us, not the least sugar. But our sugar must wait. For these ships now were speeding men, machines, arms of war, and food supplies to our forces poised on island outposts for the final onslaught on Japan. Our occupation of these islands and of the Japanese homeland itself was preceded by terrific naval bombardments. It took as much as 900 pounds of sugar for one blast from one of these guns. One salvo from 5 guns used up the yield of a whole acre. That was just part of the price of victory. But even the total victory which came with Japan's surrender failed to provide the answer to the world's sugar shortage. For the liberation of the Far East added the needs of its hungry, homeless peoples to those of Europe's undernourished millions, and to the drain on world supply. The demand for sugar is now actually larger than it was during the war. But the world's supply is still far behind the demand. Sugar is an agricultural crop, and it will take time to restore the beet fields of Europe and the cane fields and mills of the Philippines and other sugar-growing areas to their former production. Americans still are receiving the lion's share of the world's supply, but there just isn't enough to meet the demand. As in war, now in peace, sugar must be distributed as equitably as possible for household and industrial uses, and rationing is still the answer. This is the straight and simple fact. We still haven't all the sugar we'd like for our home canning and preserving, our coffee and breakfast cereal, our commercial canned meats, fruits, and vegetables, our soft drinks, our ice cream, candy, and baked goods, because world sugar supplies are still far short of demand. Our government has fitted the ration to the supply so that each gets his own fair share. When there is enough for all, then and only then, rationing will be lifted. Apart from its food uses, sugar enters into our peacetime life in countless unimagined ways. For example, in our steel mills and foundries, sugar preparations are used in certain kinds of molds to prevent the metals from sticking. Products from sugar are used in the compounding of paints, in surgery, in penicillin, in X-ray plates, and in the chemicals with which crops are sprayed. Yes, peace is here, and the things of peace are coming back. In our own country, where living standards are the highest in the world, life will be more abundant than ever. Our government is giving all possible aid to the war-shattered countries to lay the foundations for a better world. Government rationing at home helps us to share the world's sugar with the world's hungry people, that they in turn may help us to keep the peace we now enjoy. fought for that peace will not have sacrificed in vain. Sugar helped in war. Sugar now plays its part in peace. Keep sharing it.
What an amazing film. Holy cow. I had a hint that it was going to be good based on the title, but holy cow. And this explains why I had all that footage by the USDA about beet farming, sugar beet farming. Like, we showed some of those earlier, a couple of weeks ago. It was silent footage of different types of equipment that would do sugar beet farming. That's what this is all about, is the fact that our supplies of sugar were being cut off. Now, I read a book, an amazing book called God, Country, and Coca-Cola, or some variation on that title, which is about the history of Coca-Cola in the United States, and also its dealings with Pepsi. And so when the rationing started, it was all industries that use sugar got a percentage of what they were using, and so Pepsi kind of got screwed because they were beginning to grow and market, and they got totally trounced because they weren't using as much sugar as Coca-Cola was, so they couldn't really grow the industry. So during this time, when this film came out, there was a senator who was desperately trying on behalf of Pepsi Cola to make it more easy for Pepsi to get back what they needed so they could grow their business. And that he was such a pain in the butt about it that he got the nickname Pepsi Joe. And of course that was our good friend Joe McCarthy. So I recommend reading about it. It's fascinating. Coca-Cola during wartime is nuts. It's really, really crazy. There's some shadiness. Fanta was created because it was, I don't know. It was their way to market in Germany and not have something that was pro-American and that was being labeled as being Jewish-owned. And there was some shadiness there. It's amazing. So I recommend reading it. And I would say that one of the reasons that we consumed so much sugar was because we had soda. I don't have numbers, but anecdotally I feel like that's the case. So wow, that was awesome. And that was not a joke. Kevin, I know that you were like, what? But no, that was a real thing. And people were complaining, obviously. So thanks for tuning in today. Very much appreciate you watching. Very excited to show you 4 films. We scanned 4 brand new films. So we're going to try to keep that up. Even though I don't have any films on site, we're going to keep that going. I was going to show you, some of you didn't show up at the beginning, but I was showing what I was working on this weekend. Besides taking in 200 to 300 new films, here's my Hello Kitty sledgehammer, and so let me show you. Let's see, so much stuff to show you. This is why isn't it working? What's going on? Huh, that's weird. 1 second. All right, here we go. So this is a tour of the archive before. So this is the large room. So these are films that are 1,200, 1,600 feet. You can see a little bit of some artwork. I call that the Jimmy room, and you'll see why This is a pretty old film because we ended up having racks in the hallway as well. This is the large and small plus room, and then there's also a shelf for venereal disease films. We also keep film strips there. And so there's some spare take-up reels. Then here's the medium room, and so these are 800-foot cans that between 15 and 20 minutes. And there's more mediums. I think that's the most of the sizes we have are these medium sizes cans. Then here's smalls. Although we have a lot of smalls. So these are 400-foot cans. These go up to 11 minutes in length. You can see it's kind of tight. So I show you this because this is the overhead associated with actually collecting film, is where does that film go? There's a lot of people on YouTube who have old films online, but they don't have the films. They just pulled files from other sources, from Internet Archive, from other places, but we actually have film, like the real deal. And so moving 37,000 films was a lot of work, and it was like 3 or 4 months, probably 6 months actually, of moving everything off-site. And this is so that we can renovate and make a better space for an office, but also make a film vault. Not like a real film vault that gets to 50 degrees, but one where we can control the temperature and the humidity in the water, and it has its own separate HVAC system. So here is what we got done by end of day yesterday. So here I'm trying to recreate. Actually, no, that's the wrong one. Now let's try that again. Sorry. All right. All right. So this is after a Sunday's work. Jimmy is no longer here, nor is Much Love. The small plus room is now empty. The small room is got a couple of pieces of equipment in it that we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with. Then out here, and then there's my good friend who tore down a bunch of stuff. Thank you, Tim, for all this work. Yeah, good job. Yeah, so anyways, all that got torn down. Unfortunately, Jimi Hendrix did not make it. The problem was we couldn't figure out a way to get the image off the drywall, and basically when we tried to check it, it just started falling apart. But I did document it. I got lots of images of it, and I'm going to print a nice big image of it that we're going to put in a frame, and we will then have it as a memorial. Because part of it is, like, if I saved it, like, well, where did I put it? Like, I don't really have a place to put it. So reading the comments, yeah, the paper, so that drywall was put up like in the late 70s, and so it was hosed, and we tried to do tests to pull it, and it just was ripping wrong. So but we will recreate him. Yes, it was a Jimi Hendrix. Jimmy was spelled Jimmy, and it was a painting, a spray painted mural that someone that lived in the boarding house, when this was a boarding house, painted it. And I wanted to keep it, but it just, yeah. Regarding zoning, don't ask, don't tell. Basically, the city sees this as a house, and it's just going to be a house that has a bunch of films in the basement. There you go. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow to show you some more films. Please rewind and love each other. And we will see you tomorrow. If you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up, the like button. We'll see you soon.